There's a quiet strength in dealing with emotionally cold people without ever losing your warmth. In a world that often teaches you to match coldness with coldness, to retreat when someone pulls away, to ignore when someone ignores you, the Stoic response is radically different. Not weaker, not passive, but deliberate, composed, and unshakable. Because true power doesn't come from reacting. It comes from mastering yourself in the presence of those who cannot see your worth or feel your heart. Cold people confuse many. They withhold affection, resist connection, and rarely acknowledge the emotions of others. They may seem indifferent, distant, or even cruel, not because they lack intelligence, but because they weaponize detachment. And if you're not grounded in your own inner world, they can pull you into theirs, a world of silence, doubt, and emotional scarcity. But the Stoic, he stands firm. He observes. He does not absorb. To the Stoic, a cold person is not a threat. They are simply a challenge, a test of one's ability to maintain character in the face of emotional discomfort. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil." This wasn't pessimism. It was preparation. It was his armor. He knew that peace doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from not being controlled by them. And cold people will try to control you, not always with words, but with silence, not always with insults, but with indifference. They'll test your emotional resilience without ever speaking a word. And that's why Stoic wisdom is so essential. Because in the presence of coldness, most people either become reactive or emotionally drained. But the Stoic chooses neither. He remains centered, untouched, and quietly powerful. You do not need to change a cold person. That is not your job. The Stoic never wastes energy trying to warm someone who chooses to remain frozen. Instead, he adjusts his expectations, lowers his emotional investment, and maintains his own temperature. He doesn't beg for affection. He doesn't chase attention. He lets people be who they are, and he decides who he becomes in response. To deal with cold people, you must first understand one thing clearly. Their behavior is about them, not about you. Their detachment, avoidance, or emotional distance is a reflection of their internal world, their past wounds, their unresolved fears, not your worth. The Stoic never internalizes someone else's brokenness. He recognizes it, he names it, but he never carries it. That's power, not dominating others, but refusing to be dominated by what is not yours. The Stoic does not engage in games of validation. He does not beg for warmth from those who are emotionally unavailable. He does not offer endless explanations in the hope of being understood. He simply observes. He listens to what is not being said. He watches the pattern, not the performance. And from that, he makes his decisions, not out of emotion, but out of reason. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Cold people have a way of making you imagine scenarios, wondering what you did wrong, replaying every interaction, overanalyzing their silences. The Stoic steps back from this illusion. He doesn't dwell in fantasy. He stays grounded in what is, not what he wishes would be, not what he fears it might be, but what is present, observable, and real. This allows the Stoic to remain stable while others act unpredictably. When a cold person withdraws, he doesn't chase. When they lash out subtly, he doesn't retaliate. When they ignore, he does not crumble. Why? Because his self-worth is not built on another's approval. It is built on internal discipline. And discipline does not flinch when neglected. It holds. The greatest gift the Stoic gives himself is distance. Not necessarily physical distance, but emotional distance. The space between stimulus and response. That moment where he pauses, reflects, and decides. Cold people thrive on unconscious reaction. They want to see you crack, to see you question yourself. But when you respond with stillness, with composed indifference, you disrupt the pattern. You hold your power. Cold people often use confusion as a weapon. They say little, do less, and leave you wondering where you stand. But the Stoic doesn't demand clarity from others. He creates clarity within. If someone's behavior is inconsistent, he does not chase answers. He simply recognizes the inconsistency and withdraws his investment. He does not punish. He does not ghost. He simply reallocates his energy towards something more worthy. This is why Stoicism is not coldness. It is warmth under control. It is kindness without weakness. It is love without attachment. The Stoic can care, deeply even, but never at the cost of his sanity. He can show up, but not beg. He can love, but not lose himself, because he understands the central truth. When you allow cold people to shape your behavior, you surrender the very thing that makes you powerful, your internal compass. So how does a Stoic handle a cold person with absolute power? First, he sets boundaries, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. He decides what kind of treatment he accepts. He decides how close someone gets to his inner peace. And when someone repeatedly violates that peace, he reduces access, not dramatically, but decisively. Second, he regulates his expectations. The Stoic doesn't expect warmth from the cold. He expects what is consistent with their past behavior. He doesn't walk into an ice storm expecting sunshine. He brings a coat. He prepares his mind. And because of that, he doesn't suffer the same shock others do. Third, he refuses to personalize what is not personal. If someone withholds affection, the Stoic does not assume it's a reflection of his worth. He sees it for what it is, a reflection of their capacity. And he adjusts accordingly. Fourth, he cultivates detachment, not from love, but from outcome. He is kind because he chooses to be, not because he expects a certain reaction. His kindness is not a contract. His peace is not a currency. It is a gift he gives himself daily. And lastly, the Stoic protects his peace like a sacred temple. He knows how easily emotional turbulence can disrupt clarity. And so he does what few have the discipline to do. He chooses silence over argument, distance over drama, composure over chaos. The Stoic's response to coldness is not to freeze, but to radiate inner heat so steady, so disciplined, that no one else's storm can extinguish it. And because of that, he becomes untouchable, not because he is above others, but because he is rooted so deeply within himself that he no longer needs them to behave a certain way for him to be whole. This is what it means to have absolute power in the face of emotional coldness. Not to dominate, not to control, but to remain sovereign over your own emotions. To be the one who does not bend, not because you are stubborn, but because you have already chosen your alignment. And nothing, not silence, not rejection, not coldness, can pull you off that path. If someone chooses to be distant, let them. If they choose to be silent, honor it. If they choose to be cold, don't try to melt them with desperate warmth. Stay grounded, stay still, stay stoic. Let them wonder why their behavior no longer affects you. Let them question how you became so unshakable. Let them realize, without your explanation, that you were never trying to control them. You were only ever trying to honor yourself. And in that realization, something happens. Some cold people, they change. They soften. They return. Not because you pushed, but because you didn't. Because your detachment forced them to confront their own behavior. Because your silence became a mirror they couldn't ignore. But even if they don't change, you still win. Because your goal was never to change them. It was to preserve you. And in a world that constantly asks you to abandon yourself for the sake of others, that is a revolutionary act. So the next time you face someone cold, remember, you are not weak for feeling deeply. You are powerful when you learn to protect those feelings. You are powerful when you stop overextending. You are powerful when you learn that not everyone deserves access to your warmth. Let the cold be cold. Let the quiet be quiet. Let the distant be distant. You are not here to fix them. You are here to free yourself. That's how Stoics handle cold people, with absolute power, total grace, and unshakable peace.